I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I'm Brad Brown. I am one of the volunteers like Sue and many others here. From my attire, you should know and feel and know that, if I can come dressed like this, everyone should come comfortably and enjoy and the camaraderie, listen to Robert, have cookies, coffee, and then visit each of the tables tonight and network and talk with others. Robert Bachman, who will be speaking tonight, is the likable engineer, and he is a senior project manager with ABB and a self-taught networker. In 2 job transitions in the last 10 years, he has learned that our attitudes can affect our ability to successfully network our way to our next position and win the interview. He now works with job seekers one-on-one and through both 40 Plus and through the Southeastern Wisconsin and Hales Corners, Lutherans, Crossroads Career Networks, and he gives back to the community and teaches critical job-seeking skills to those in need. Tonight in his presentation entitled Attitude, Adding Air to Your Tires, he will illustrate why attitude is key and provide you with words that you can use to change your attitude in this challenging time in your life. I'd like to welcome Robert Bachman.
Thanks, Brad. Well, good evening, everybody. I'd like to start off with 3 stories. The first one. I'm over 55. Nobody's going to hire me as a marketing person. What do I do? Or, second story, in each and every way, I get better and better every day, facing the challenges of trying to find a job. Or, I'm looking for a job in customer service. I hate customer service. I can't stand talking to people, but it's the only thing that I know. Can you help me find a job in customer service? So, attitude. A couple of different attitudes. My question to you is, what is your attitude? Are you running on flat tires? Or do you have, in most cars, it's now 30 pounds worth of pressure in your tires? What is your attitude on a scale of 1 to 10? Show of hands. Who thinks they're a 1 to 3? How about a 4 to 7? The rest of you are all 8 to 10, and your attitude's great, right? Good. Then I don't have to talk tonight. Wrong. Do you know that attitude is the single most important thing that you take into the job search process and you take into the interview process? Now, I will tell you that having gone through this process just like you're going through a couple of times over the last couple of years, I know it's difficult to maintain a positive attitude as you go through this process. You go through peaks and valleys and things like that, and some days you just feel like crap. But having a positive attitude as you go through this process it is hands down critical. It's key to getting through this process. And I'm not standing in front of you as an HR professional telling you these are the things that you should do to fix your attitude or change your attitude that I learned in HR school. No, I'm standing in front of you because just like you, I was a job seeker, and I want to impart upon you some of the tools that I learned as I went through this process for myself, and hope that you can internalize some of these things. It's the attitude that you take into the interview. Your attitude wins or loses in that interview. And really, it's not just about the words that you say, it's how they're delivered. Your attitude, your enthusiasm, your self-confidence is what is going to make the difference as to how long it's going to take you to find successful employment. You know, when we do the Crossroads class here and all over the country, these different churches, the first session, the foundation, the cornerstone of this is spending a week talking about attitude. And then we talk about resumes and networking and interviewing skills and all those other kinds of things. But attitude is the most important thing that you can take into this process. So what are some of the things that employers are looking for today? Number one, they want people that want to work. People that enjoy what they're doing. People that take pride in their organization, their products, and their customers. People that care about their customers and their coworkers. They're looking for team players that others like to be around. They're looking for somebody that can make work a better place by their good humor, their dependability, and their integrity. And finally, consider this. Employers from all over the country believe that attitude is contagious. Is yours worth catching or not? And employers also say, I can teach somebody how to analyze a spreadsheet. I can teach them to be a marketing person. I can teach them to run a CNC machine, but I can't teach them attitude that comes from within. And I'll put a big disclaimer out there. I can't change your attitude. Only you can. Only it comes from inside. And that's really the key to what we're talking about tonight. I read a book recently about how we as human beings process attitude. And it was very strange, very interesting. But do you know that we process and see people's moods and attitude not with our eyes? It's unconscious. It's done in our subconscious mind. So when you go into that interview or when you go into that interaction with somebody, they're not doing it consciously, and neither are you. It's done here in your subconscious mind. In fact, they've even done research with blind people and found that they can see, they can gauge a person's attitude without even using their eyes. So think about your attitude and what you take into that networking opportunity, that interview, that whatever you're doing, because it either wins you the position or causes you to lose it. As I said, we can't teach attitude or enthusiasm, but here's some examples so that you can work to create your own. The first one I start off with is, some of you may have heard of Dr. Viktor Frankl. He was an Austrian psychiatrist that was a prisoner in a concentration camp during World War II. And after the war, he sat down and he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And one of the things that he learned in the concentration camp was he'd see people that were physically fit, but that had a bad attitude pass away. And he saw those that were not so, that were starving to death, but they continued on because they had a positive attitude. And he goes on to say in his book, everything can be taken from a person but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Even though Conditions such as lack of sleep, insufficient food, and various mental stresses may suggest that the inmates were bound to react in certain ways. In the final analysis, it became clear that the sort of person the prisoner became was a result of an inner decision and not the result of camp influences. So the question is, are you a prisoner of your attitude? Some of us are. I run into people like that in some of these groups that I coach and talk to quite often, and it's pretty sad. So given that attitude wins in the interview, when do you inflate your tires to fix your attitude? When you walk into that office for that interview? When you get in your car to go to the interview? When you submit that resume into that black hole called walkiejobs.com or, Career Builder? No. How about right here, right now? It starts here. It starts inside our brains. It's all part of that mental conversation that we have with ourselves each and every day. It's that mental conversation that you're having with yourself right now. Researchers tell us that in the course of a day, we have somewhere between 40 and 60,000 thoughts that go through our brain every day. And up to 2/3 of them are repeated over and over again. So what are you telling yourself? I'm great, I can get through this process, or man, I don't know how I'm ever going to find a job. Well, guess what? If it's over here, you're going to be successful. If it's over here, it's going to take you a whole lot longer. So it really does start with that self-talk, that conversation that's going on inside your head right now. Norman Vincent Peale said this about attitude, and I love this quote. It's not what you think you are, but what you think you are. Again, it's not what you think you are, but what you think about becomes what you are. And I find that to be very powerful, and something that a lot of job seekers really struggle with. And I think for people that are in the job search process, and like I said, this isn't easy. It takes a lot of work to create that positive attitude. But I really think that it starts with one basic question, one that defines this whole process of job search. And I'm going to ask the question for a show of hands. How many here are unemployed? Wrong answer. Everybody stand up. Gotta do a little exercise. Repeat after me. I am successfully employed.
I am successfully employed.
In pursuit of. My next position as. And then you fill in the blank for whatever it is. Let's do this again. All together. I am successfully employed in pursuit of my next position as a... Come on, folks. Let's do it with a little bit more enthusiasm. I know we're in a church, but I am successfully employed in pursuit of my next position as a... And then you fill in the blank. Okay, sit down. Now, do you feel different? Maybe not, maybe so. I will tell you that if you take those words and either say it, see it, or write it every day for the next 30 days, at the end of 30 days, you will be different. You will have a different attitude to this whole process. And the reason I say, see it, read it, or write it, it's because we all have different learning styles. Some learn better by seeing, others by reading, others by writing stuff down. So figure out what your learning modality is, that's what they call it, and take that and utilize that for the next month or the next 60 days or the next some period of time. I guarantee at the end of that period of time, you will be a different person. You will have a different attitude. I've seen it work in countless people that I've talked to. But you have to make that commitment to change your attitude. And quite frankly, if you do, it will happen. If you walk out of here and say, this stuff ain't going to work for me, then it won't. But it will work for you. As I said, I've seen this work in more people than I care to count. Positive mental attitude, PMA, must become your dominant thought pattern, not just a once in a while kind of thing. I love this quote that I read recently. It said, as you confront the world, unrealistic optimism can be the life vest that keeps you afloat. Again, unrealistic optimism can be the life vest that keeps you afloat. So what are you reading that's motivational every day? What are you listening to that's motivational every day? Are you picking up the business pages of the journal and reading the unemployment figures? Don't. Are you picking up the paper and seeing about this company's closed and that company's closed? Don't. Pick up the journal and pick up the paper and read about those kinds of companies that are starting and growing and doing the things that will result in you finding your next successful employment. Because, as I said, you are successfully employed in the process of finding your next job. And depending on where you start is going to determine how long it's going to take you to get there. And attitude is really wrapped up in self-confidence. Do you have the self-confidence that you can do the job that you're interviewing for? Nothing can bring you success except yourself. Attitude, self-esteem, self-confidence is persuasive. No one pays attention to somebody who lacks the confidence to win in the interview. You control your self-confidence, your self-esteem. You need to be the one that shows passion and interest. That's the person that's often chosen. When I talk to job seekers all the time, the first question I always ask them is, what do you want to do when you grow up? And at least half of them say, or I should say, about a third of them say, I don't know. Another third say, geez, I never thought about that. And then the other third give you some half-baked answer. And in the job search process today, passion sells. So figure out what you're passionate about. I'm an engineer. I'm passionate about being an engineer. I love what I do. In fact, my wife says, I get to retire, she gets to retire at 62. I got to work until I'm 70 because you love your job. I'm fine with that. But you have to be passionate about what it is that you want to do. So find your passion and go for it. Attitude is a quality you can't fake. Like I said before, we process people's attitudes in our subconscious mind. We can tell if they're faking or if they're real. So you can't fake it. And really, it's the way you look at things. It's your mental focus on the world. Henry Ford once said, if you think you can, you are correct. If you think you can't, you are also correct. A couple of examples that I love. Everybody knows who Thomas Edison is, invented the light bulb. He tried more than 1,000 different things to create the filament in the light bulb, and finally found one that worked. But he never looked at the 999 things that didn't as failures. He looked at them as, okay, I can check this one off, I want to go on to the next one. It was his path to success. He never failed once. He had 999 course corrections. Jack Canfield, everybody knows Chicken Soup for the Soul. Back when he first wrote the very first one, he got rejected by 41 publishers before the 42nd one said, okay, let's do this. Now, if Jack had stopped at 30 or 36 or even 40, we wouldn't have Chicken Soup for the Soul and the marvelous empire that built for Jack Canfield. So don't stop. Continue on. Oftentimes a job seeker will ask me, so how many times should I really follow up with that organization that I really want to go work for? And I use the example of Jack Canfield. And follow it up with, of course, there's different ways to follow up with employers. But the question to them is, do you really want the job? Do you really want to go work for company XYZ? Are you really passionate about what it is that you want to do? If you do, if you want to go work for that company, there's no limit on the number of times that you want to follow up with that employer. And they look at me like, are you kidding? I know one person that got a job in marketing, they followed up with the same company 36 times. The 36th time, they got the job. So it's all about your attitude. It's about emotion. It's about your enthusiasm. Your attitude is something that you put on in the morning when you get out of bed. Do you know the snooze alarm was invented for people with bad attitudes? So when you get up and put your feet on the floor, what's the first thing out of your mouth? Oh man, I don't know how I can face another day. Or this hurts, that hurts, I feel like crap. Or I can't wait to face the day and what's going to happen and the challenges that are coming to me today. So it's like a shirt that you put on every morning. So my question is, what kind of attitude, what kind of shirt did you put on when you got out of bed this morning? One that's crappy, one that's indifferent, or one that's positive? Your attitude affects your personality. It affects how you answer questions. It helps you to win in the interview. And quite frankly, isn't that what we're all about? Trying to get that interview that's going to get us the next position? It's somewhat about selling your skill set, your value proposition, your ability to solve that person's problem. It's somewhat about your skills, but it's mostly about your attitude. You need to create, or you need to harness a new perspective in your life. Is that glass half full, or is it half empty? As I said, this is hard work. Maintaining a positive attitude when you've been out of work for 6 months or 9 months, or some people I've talked to that have been out of work for 18 months or 2 years. And trying to maintain that positive attitude is extremely time consuming. Sometimes it can be debilitating. but it is the most important thing that you can do in this process. You know, you're being tested. We all get tested as we go through this process. Our ability to create good resumes, our ability to craft car stories, to network, to be able to effectively answer questions in interview practices, in interviews, to maintain our focus, to maintain our attitude. You're being tested. And you know what? Each of us, and you know, Sue and I have talked about this, you have some hidden talents there that you're finding that you find as you go through this process. You know, I teach the Crossroads class over at Tales Corners a couple times a year, and it's interesting to watch people come into that class not knowing how to do this, and they go through the 6 or 8 week course and they find out that, hey, I can do this. I can create an effective resume. I can create car stories. I can interview well. They learn stuff about themselves that gets them through the process. Your attitude can open doors or it can close them. And oftentimes we create our attitude with our words, with our actions, and with body language. Let's talk about body language for just a couple minutes. Do you go through that interview process before you even go through the interview? Do you do it in your mind? Do you make a movie that you practice? Going through that interview and answering the questions and practice the answers to your questions before you even step into that person's office and shake their hand? You know, if you read stories about sports, people that are successful in sports, they will tell you that they run that race 100 times before they even step foot on the track. They practice it in their mind over and over and over again. You just can't walk into an interview and expect you're going to nail it without practicing your attitude. And you know, talking a little bit about body language, yeah, the current thing is that you got 7 seconds to make a good first impression. That's really true, and it starts with that handshake. It's how you sit in a chair, whether you're sitting up straight or whatever. But you know what? It's changing, because nowadays there's more telephone interviews, Skype interviews, video interviews. It's becoming less of a personal across the table. So in situations like that, body language really doesn't come into play. It's about the words that you use and the attitude that you have and how you express those words when you're talking to somebody on the phone or as part of that video interview. But getting back to that in-person interview, lean forward in that chair to show that you're actively listening, that you're engaged with that person. You know, Richard Bowles, who's written, you know, how many versions of What Colors Your Parachute, I think in 2011 had a piece in that year's book that said if you're over 50 years old, sit on the edge of your chair, be enthusiastic, be engaged. That will get you the job and help you beat out the 20-something that's sitting back there and just relaxing and answering questions. You need to be excited. Are you excited to be there? What's your level of energy? Do you have a high level of self-esteem, self-confidence? Or are you just going through the motions in life? Or worse yet, are you leading a life of quiet desperation? Some people are. That is not going to get you the job. You know, one person committed is worth 100 people that are just interested. Your attitude, you know, could get you the job that you have 8 of the qualifications for. But I guarantee you that if you have a crappy attitude and you have all of the qualifications, you're probably not going to get the job. Because, as I said before, employers are looking for people that have a positive attitude, that can contribute to their organization in a positive way, and not just the hard skills, the soft skills as well. And I like to think of the attitude that you find at a sporting event. And I'll use the Green Bay Packers as an example rather than the Brewers, because they're not doing so well right now. If you've ever been to a Packer game at Lambeau Field, you know what kind of enthusiasm there is as you go through that, as you're sitting in the stands. You need to try to capture some of that as you get ready to do the interview. And whether it's reading something motivational before you leave to go to the interview, or listening to something motivational on the way there, or listening to some music that pumps you up, you need to do those kinds of things, because that is going to affect your attitude. Just about everybody in the world knows who Billy Mays is, or Billy Mays was. He was the guy that sold Jupiter Jacks and OxyClean and all kinds of other stuff before he died. Was he an enthusiastic salesperson? Absolutely. Did he believe in what he was selling? Didn't matter. He got you to buy what it was that he was trying to sell. Can you get that interviewer to buy what you're trying to sell? You know, Billy Mays is, you know, still present out there on YouTube. So go watch some of his videos. He incorporated great enthusiasm for OxyClean. You know, can you incorporate great enthusiasm for yourself as you're trying to sell yourself? You got to do it, because that's how you make the difference between you and that person that was just there in the interview, or the person that's following after you. You need to be as excited as that, and that can win you the job. And it is all about words, and it is all about practicing those winning words. And when I was going through my job search, there are 2 places that I found where I could practice my winning attitude. One was by networking. Getting out and talking to people ad nauseum, all day, every day of the week. You know, my wife tells the story that, and I love it, didn't make sense for me to make a honey-do list of things for Bob to do when Bob was home, because Bob was never home. I was out networking with people, going to meetings like this, going to Chamber of Commerce things, having one-on-one informational interviews with people during the course of my job search. I was never home. I was never in front of the computer shoving resumes under the, through the digital keyhole. I was always out talking to people. So it gives you the opportunity to practice your attitude, to practice your car stories, to practice your elevator speech, et cetera, et cetera. So get out there and network and practice that attitude. And the other thing that I used in the process was I belong to Toastmasters. I've been a Toastmaster for 8 years. It taught me public speaking. It taught me to be more comfortable about being able to present myself in an interview or some kind of a situation. And that's all I'll say about Toastmasters, because I could spend another half hour talking about it. If you want to find more about Toastmasters from me, I'll give you some more information at the break or at the table. And I know of at least one other Toastmaster in the room, that Corrine is a Toastmaster as well, and great organization. It's the kind of place that you get to practice your people skills, your attitude, your words. And you need to be aware of the language of confidence. And when you're in the interview, it's all about giving those answers with the utmost confidence. It's being able to express yourself without hesitation, with those scripted and well-practiced car stories. It's about good eye contact. It's about turning questions into statements. You know, when I sit down and do coaching with job seekers and do interview practice, you can tell the person that doesn't lack self-confidence. They often turn declarative sentences into questions. Excuse me. For example, I'm not really sure what I bring to the table now that we've talked further. Do you think I'd be a good fit? I've heard that. Does that communicate confidence? Of course not. It's more like, it should be more like, I'd like to learn more about the job responsibilities, and based on what you've told me so far, I know I'd be a perfect fit for this job. You never look for reassurance from the interviewer. Your job is to confidently assure that person that you are exactly what it is that they're looking for. You need to craft your answers like you have the job already. You know, and when I talk to people about that, they look at me kind of funny. But that's what you need to do. You know, use words like definitely, absolutely, completely. Things like, as part of your team, I will definitely, or working together, we will, rather than words like maybe, perhaps. If I'm picked, I could. If I'm hired, we might try. If I'm selected, I might. So which word examples provide the enthusiastic message that you want to convey? It needs to be when I'm hired, after I start, or when I'm on board. You have to act and speak and do like it is impossible to fail. Because it is. You have to succeed at this process. And if you put your attitude into it, you will succeed at this process. Success is really a state of mind. If you think success, you will be. It's like I said before about self-talk. If you think success, you will be. If you think you're a failure, well, guess what? It's just what Henry Ford said. If you think you can, you are correct. If you think you can't, you are also correct. So, are you willing to do whatever it takes to find your next successful position? If your answer is, well, everything except change my attitude, guess what? You're not committed to this process. Attitude is everything. My favorite book, written by a gentleman by the name of Jeff Keller, and I've read it about 6 times. It's called Attitude is Everything. Change your attitude, you will change your life. Your attitude is the air in your tires that helps you travel down the road of life. So, are you running on 4 flat tires, or are you pumped up with a positive attitude? Now, I've talked about a lot of things tonight, and all of it's what I think some pretty decent words. But words not translated into actions, are nothing but words. So, what I'd like you to do is take a nice, bright 3x5 card and write down the 2 things that you learned tonight that you're going to utilize in the next couple of weeks to change your attitude. Because, like I said, words without actions are nothing but words. And without actions, nothing happens. So we'll take about a minute or 2 to write down what you think you heard tonight that you're going to utilize over the next 2 weeks to change your attitude. Yeah, I know. Trust me, Sue, I'm a Toastmaster. I know about time. Right, Corinne? You have a question?
What are car stories? I've never heard that before.
Talk about that later. It stands for challenge, action, result. And you try to package the things that you've done over the course of your career into 1 to 2 minute car stories. The challenge that you faced, the action that you took, and the result that you achieved. It's a great interview technique. And for some people, it's kind of hard to wrap their brain around what they've done in their life, because they just say, oh, I just did my job. Well, think about the things that you did in your job and put them into stories, because stories work in interviews. They help you answer those behavioral-based questions. Okay, so I'm looking for one volunteer to share what they've learned tonight. Not a volunteer for this ministry. I'm looking for one job seeker, one successfully employed job seeker, to share what they've learned tonight with the rest of the audience. Who'd like to share? Nobody? Okay.
Turn questions into statements. I thought that was
Pardon me?
Turn questions into statements.
Okay.
I thought that was good.
Okay. Good.
So I got to practice that.
Good. Here's a copy of my favorite book, Attitude is Everything. Change your attitude, change your life. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm done. I'll be here sitting at the table if you have any other questions, but that's the end of my presentation.